Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Two World Podcast. I am Barney, and I'm joined here with my co-host, and he is
Jacob.
And I think in a recent episode with Matt, I started us off with a little anecdote from the TV show Frasier, and today I have one more, and it's kind of a quiz for you, Jacob. Not really a quiz, just a questionnaire, maybe they'll call it. This is from the father in the show. His name is Martin, and he's talking with Frasier. And he says, "Let me ask you a few questions." And here goes. Question number one: Can you make it through the night without waking up and having to go to the bathroom?
Ooh, that's a good one. There are some nights when I can and some nights
Right.
when I can't.
Same
Um,
here.
on the whole, I'm trying to think. I probably more often than not need to use the restroom at night. How
Okay.
about you?
Yeah, about the same. Okay. Number two, can you get in and out of a chair without going, mm,
Um, I- let's see. I think so. There are
okay,
definitely
yeah,
times
yeah.
when I make that sound, but I think I make it out of the chair more times than not without that sound.
Right.
So,
It,
yeah. How
it
about
depends on
you?
what yeah, well, it depends on how hard of a day I've had, maybe, yeah. Okay. Next one. I like this one. Can you eat a slice of pizza less than 12 hours before going to bed? I think meaning if you'll get indigestion, maybe, or heartburn.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. I do get a lot more indigestion lately. I've been using the Cherry Tums chewables.
Oh,
So,
really? Frasier has a very nice response to this. He says, "What's on the pizza?" And then and then Martin says, "Aha, I thought so." And he said, "All right, well, now we've established that you're middle-aged." So that
oh,
was, yes, that is going to be our topic for today. How it feels. What are some things that happen? How do we reflect on entering into the middle age years that we have? And before we get started, I just wanted to share one more question and one more photo, or one photo. Do you remember the Steve Martin movie Father of the Bride?
yes.
Yeah, from 1991. And I'm sorry, I can't get the actor's name who played the mom. Do you remember her name right away?
Oh, I keep wanting to say Sally something or Sharon something, but
I'm, you know,
um, yeah, we'll have to go
it
back and.
might come to us. Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'll show you. Here is a still from that movie, and these are the
Oh,
parents from the father of the bride, Steve Martin, and then the actress to be named later. And both of them are 45 years old.
oh wow! Look at
Yeah,
that.
in the movie, I think that maybe you and I are
Diane
doing
Keaton.
okay.
Diane Keaton is her
Yeah,
name.
Yes, Diane Keaton. Yes,
Oh, they're
yes.
45.
Well,
Wow.
in the movie, I don't know
In that
in real
movie.
life. Yeah, in
Right.
the movie, this is supposed to be in 1990s America what a 45-year-old couple looks like.
Wow.
So I think com if we take that and we think about you and I where we are right now, I think we're doing okay.
Okay, thanks, Barney. I feel better.
Yeah,
That was helpful.
me too. Yes, sir.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, that's
Oh,
interesting. It is
mhm,
fascinating to think about gray hair
mhm,
because I've started to notice gray hair coming in my beard and on my
mm,
head. And Katie has
mhm,
noticed some gray hairs too. The other day we were
mhm.
walking and um, I had a long singular gray hair on my eyebrow that was longer than the other hairs. And I think it was distracting to Katie. And so when we got home, she mentioned it to me, and I went in and I looked in the mirror, and sure enough, I was like, wow, that's
Oh,
crazy. It was just a
it's
singular, like
really
long
great.
gray hair there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually cut that one off because it was
yeah, I
distracting.
don't blame you.
But in general, I don't mind. It's kind of
Mm,
interesting that the gray is
mhm,
coming in, but I know
mhm,
some people prefer to dye their hair, and
mhm.
everybody's different with that. But have you had any gray hairs yet?
Yeah, for a real long time, I've just told myself, oh, I'm strawberry blonde, so it must just be blonde hair, you know. It's just really, really, really light blonde hair. But I think that probably it's time to face the facts. That yeah, I think I have a few there. And yeah, if I do let my beard grow in too, then I notice that it gets a little that I notice a little gray, few gray spotches. But I think in general, I just am luckier with terms of hair color and DNA. I think like red hair probably stays, it retains its color a little bit better than other hair colors. So um, I'll hold out as long as I can. But
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's
yeah.
great. Um, well, it's interesting to talk about the middle age years because I think in a lot of ways we're probably taught or conditioned to be apprehensive about aging and to
Mm.
kind of try to maybe convince ourselves that we're not or to put it out of our minds. But Richard Rohr wrote this book a few years back called Falling Upward. And he talks about different stages of life and how when you're really young, you're striving to gain credibility of those around you. And you're building, 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 and trying to impress others and establish yourself. And then as you age, you get to this other place where it's no longer about impressing others, but authenticity and presence becomes more important. And when I think about that, if you frame aging in that way, uh, it's not something that is actually to be avoided, but it's actually hopeful. Like if we can
Hmm.
get to know ourselves more and be more authentic as we age, and even if we don't look as athletic and in shape, and if our hair begins to turn gray, but we can be more fully ourselves and be more grounded, then that's actually quite a hopeful thing. Each stage will have its advantages, and so I know we're not there yet per se with the gray hair, but I think in middle age years, one does start that transition. Hope, I mean, I guess everybody's different. So I should just speak for myself. They talk about the midlife crisis and the wrestling with your identity and what have I accomplished in my life so far. And I will never forget one Sunday this was when I turned 40. Right now I'm
Okay.
44. So this
Hmm.
was a few years back. But somebody from my congregation came up to me after the church service, and I had mentioned in the service that I was turning 40. And they said, "Well, you're halfway there." And I thought, oh, that's kind of an interesting comment. I think they were just being humorous.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But like and really, actually, to be honest, many males in the United States don't live to 80. So
Mm.
statistically, I would even have a little bit less than half.
Yeah, less
But when
halfway. Yeah,
you frame
right.
things like
Yeah.
that, it's like, oh, what have I accomplished up to this point, and
Yeah.
what you know
Mhm.
have I done to enrich others, and is have I been successful? And I guess falling into a little bit of what Richard Rohr says, the opening of our lives is typically like. But
Mm.
then wrestling with that, hopefully, at least for me, I feel like has helped me get more in touch with my mortality and to not be so afraid of getting so much accomplished before I pass away, but to try to find the beauty in the journey itself and the people that are around me and um, the relationships that I have. And so, as we were talking before recording today, I had mentioned a few questions to you. And I think this first question and this idea of reframing of our identity is really good.
Hmm.
How has our definition of success changed since we were younger and then as we enter into our middle age years? And so I would probably have said when I was in my 20s, success is defined in a large way by your um, working towards your goals and
Hmm.
um, following through and being committed and dependable and yeah, achieving or striving towards that end. And I would have said other things too as a 20-year-old, I think,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
maybe I would have had a little bit more emphasis on finding the career path and investing in that. And now in my 40s, I feel it's much more about the relationships that I have, and the idea of success or legacy, if we want to use that term, is much more about how will my kids talk about me when
Hmm.
I'm gone, or how do my kids feel about me now? And hopefully, in both of those spaces, I that there's a positive connection and a mutual love and care, and that they can see that I want to spend time with them. And so for me, that's how I think of success. But I know that I don't want to paint it with a certain brush where you can't say, oh, career is not meaningful, because I think we could also explore how we could have a healthier sense of success in our careers, or we could
Mhm.
explore it in the framework of spirituality or in the life of the mind. And, so I just wanted to start with that uh, comment though about relationships as maybe one of my main metrics for success is how is my relationship with my children and with my spouse. So how about for you, Barney? Have you noticed any shifts within yourself in terms of
Yeah.
how
Oh
you?
yeah, I would think for sure that when I was trying to form a vision of what my career would be, that yeah, I envisioned myself, maybe the word I want to use is like having some notoriety, but like being well known for something, or making a mark in, I was hoping, I remember I was so um inspired by this commercial for, I think it was Glaxo Smith Kline, drug company, about a woman who was working real hard to develop, with her research, and then she decided to call it quits for the day, and then she went back, and then she thought, oh, for a while in her car, and then she went back to the lab, and then she found out what it was that was going to, the right solution to her problem that she was pondering. And I thought, oh wow, wouldn't that be great to do that kind of thing, to like make medicine that's really making a difference, and be able to see it out there changing people's lives, and helping people and whatnot. I thought, yeah, that's definitely the career path for me. And um, it's as a side note, it's interesting how we tend to think of notoriety as being a real positive thing, of being well known. But when I would talk to my Japanese students at university, and say, oh, one of our vocabulary words this week is notoriety, and they would define it um, through the Japanese dictionary, which is more closely linked to the stem that it comes from, or the related word for notorious.
Mm,
And so they always viewed at least the word notoriety in a real negative view. And it was interesting that to take that context from the video we were watching, where the speaker is using it positively, and then help them to understand that, uh, yeah, you know what, it really is true that it comes from being notorious, but in a negative way. But it tends to have more of a positive, famous,
yeah,
connotation. But yeah, um, but yeah, even then, you know, a lot of twists and turns, because always in the back of my mind, I wanted to have some impact in my community and have some way to volunteer. And then that kind of started me on another road, um, away from such, away from that type of research, that and in medicine, and then to teaching, and then living in Japan. But um, yeah, and then sometimes me too. Even now, I think about, how do we define success, especially um, in Japan, where sometimes things are measured a lot more commercially, and by your bank account and whatnot, and then if I find myself slipping, going down that road, I just think about the fact that, what I do, I really think that makes a big impact, on the kids' lives that I get to teach and see, and, be a part of. And, one student came to me a few years ago, and she was in her first year of university, and, she laid all of the um, thanks to me. She said, she's like, if I hadn't had your class, I wouldn't be studying English, and I wouldn't have this dream of wanting to work at an embassy, and, things like that. And she was just so grateful. And you think, wow, I never even guessed that you would have remembered me, let alone, appreciate those, few minutes we spent as a class every week. And
mm,
yeah, those kinds of things you find, like you say, relationships make really are much greater fulfilling type of success. That and then I think about, well, if I did have a real hard job that's bringing in big bucks, I wouldn't get to see my family as much.
yes,
And being able to be around and be a good dad is a you know the top number one um, way that I define uh, being successful now, I think. And maybe the 20-something-year-old Barney wasn't even sure if he wanted kids. So so it's a big change from between then and now, I think.
Wow, that's really insightful, Barney, to hear about your experience with this student story, how you unknowingly planted a seed in her life or you impacted her and only later found out how much it had meant. And I think that is a really helpful thing that sometimes things that we did when we were younger, we find out about as we age, in middle age years, or maybe even beyond. And but that is part of a legacy or an important part of the purpose or meaning to life, to find these connections we have with people or stories or ways we've helped others. And yeah, I like that as a better example than just clout or being acknowledged
Yeah.
by your acumen and your accomplishments in the social settings, but also like a practical life on life impact or connection with somebody else. That makes a big difference. And I like that. Yes, it's interesting. There's this spiritual discipline. I don't know if you would call it discipline. Maybe I should say spiritual state that monastics talked about in the Catholic tradition called obscurity. And the whole idea is that there's a certain blessedness in being going through life without being recognized, or in a sense of being unknown. That there's a certain, and it does remind me in a way of the Beatitudes from Matthew chapter 5 that Jesus
Mhm.
talks about, these counterintuitive states of life that some
Mhm.
people are in, that are actually a very blessed place to be because God is particularly near to people in these places. Like in that case, it talks about those who are or who are mourning or who are sorrowful or who feel poor in spirit. But
Mhm.
in this case, obscurity is it's a really interesting concept. And I talked with Katie about this, that we can work hard and we can um, seek to serve others, and part of our ego wants recognition and seeks it. I mean, maybe you have a lot better handle on your ego than I do for mine. I just know there are times when I struggle, and maybe I've worked behind the scenes on something, or um, I put something out there and it hasn't gotten much response, or what in terms of like something I've written or something I've
Mhm.
created, or a message I send out to a community, like eliciting a response. And then I struggle. But then that word about like obscurity is a place, like if people haven't seen us, it's a chance for us to lean in a little bit more to maybe our connection to God, or to realize like being humble and not being puffed up in our sense of self-importance actually can be quite a big asset. So I know I went off on a rabbit trail there, but do you have you been surprised at all about yourself as you've gotten older? Are there any qualities that have developed within you that you're like, oh, huh, where did that come from? Or I'm surprised I feel this way, or maybe even have maybe even habits that you have, or foods that you like that you
Mhm.
wouldn't have anticipated when you were younger, anything like that?
Oh, that's interesting to think of it in such a broad way. Um, yeah, I think I even noticed the other day that I feel like I feel like I'm way late to the game here, but I the other day I thought, oh yeah, I'm finally getting mature. And I thought, I'm finally, like living in a mature way and thinking mature thoughts and acting maturely, and it's like, what took me so long? But especially in terms of like being less reactive, and more patient and, just calm, calmer in general about things, and um, just taking things as they come. And yeah, that's been a something that I've noticed I finally developed um, this kind of habit in myself. And I think it was never something that I consciously, consciously or consistently was thinking of. I think it just kind of came, probably mostly from being a dad, but yeah, I think with kind of noticing, I'm getting older and kind of having a new status, as, where I am in community, in the workplace, and then at home, as a, aging and it just kind of materialized this new sense of holding myself and presenting, living differently. And I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, that's for sure. Um, but um, but beyond that, um, I don't know. I I always thought that I would, like you see those commercials about do you feel like you have less energy, during the day, or do you feel this or that? And I thought, oh, that's other people. That's never going to be me. But then the other day, it's like, boy, I feel like I have less energy. So,
Oh my goodness. That
yeah.
is so fun. Well,
Uh,
Barney, I have been noticing lately, and I don't know if it's because there's some ad targeting based on my metadata of my account,
sure.
but
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
watching on YouTube and I'm seeing all these commercials for these products for hair loss and weight loss and like mental health, assistant and like things relate. And they're all the characters are like middle-aged people. And I'm like, I'm like, I can relate, to these ads. And I'm
Sure.
like, but
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
surely they're targeting me based on the proportion of how often I
Right.
see them. So,
Right. Right. Right.
but yeah, definitely the ads are catered, definitely
Mm-hmm.
to just
Mm-hmm.
our age group.
Yeah.
And in that way, um, that's interesting. Well, that does make me think a little bit about health and fitness,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
well-being overall. I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, a big change in my middle-aged years was getting diagnosed with uh, type 2 diabetes. And that was something that I would really hoping would never happen. And I could see it was kind of a slow progression in my 30s that my numbers were worsening. And I just wasn't taking the bull by the horns and making enough lifestyle changes. And then finally, when my blood sugar levels and everything reached that point of a diagnosis, then I was like, okay, now here's where I am. And I took it more seriously. And so,
Mm-hmm.
meeting with a dietitian and having um, exercise goals and practicing mindfulness when eating. And um, recently, I'm starting on a medication for type 2 diabetes. All these things have become part of my life rhythm now that I'm grateful that they're there, the tools that are there.
Oh yeah.
And had I been more mindful in my youth, I could have maybe been in a better place now. But at least now I can, adjust and do what I
Yeah.
need to do. But do you have any fitness goals, or have you noticed any, you know, uh, things about uh, health that you've learned or that you need to engage with in this season as opposed to when you were younger?
Oh yeah. Yeah, like I realized that yeah, when I was younger, I might have thought about, lifting weights and, heavier is better and, trying to lift as much as I could every time. And um now I find that actually, much less is better for me, lifting just, 2 kilograms or 5 kilograms, like 10 pounds at the most is just okay. And because finally I have to face the fact that, it's listen to your body, as they
Yes.
say, because when we're
The body
younger, we're
keeps the
thinking,
score.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's when you were younger, we think, okay, I can stretch it a little bit further. I can do a little bit more. I can take it, I'm not going to overdo it. But now, I think, just this, I think to myself, just this little bit today is okay. It's better than not having had done anything. And, I don't have to, it's okay if I take the scooter to work sometimes. I don't have to ride my bike every day, something like that. It's yeah, exactly like making listening, taking it easy, when necessary is does a body very good. once once you're in middle age, I think it's probably a very good lesson.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can agree with that 100%. And just real quickly to give credit where credit's due, that the phrase I'd said earlier, "The Body Keeps the Score," is a book that Katie had read a few years
Oh,
ago that was really
really?
interesting. I can't remember the author's name right now, but if somebody were to do a Google search, they could quickly
Uh-huh.
find it. But anyway, I agree 100% with you, and I'm finding that low impact
Hmm.
exercise is really fulfilling and makes a difference.
Oh
A few
yeah.
years ago, Katie and I started walking daily, and
Mhm.
walking, 1.5, 2 miles or
Yeah.
more. And it has made a huge difference. We didn't even realize it. And one time we went biking and we went along this path where there was a hill and we weren't winded.
Oh
we
yeah.
remarked to ourselves, wow, when we weren't walking regularly, we used to get winded at that part. And then we went kayaking and it was the same thing. We had more energy. And then I've started swimming with Katie on Mondays and not having impact as I go through the pool is easier on my
Yeah.
joints. And
Oh yeah.
so, yeah, fortunately, there's a lot of good athletic activity. When I was younger, I liked to run, but that's harder on the
I
knees
know.
and the
Yeah.
ankles and the feet. And so
Hmm.
it's nice to have walking and swimming now
Hmm.
as options. Um,
Yeah.
so um, I was kind of wondering, have there been some things that have emerged in your middle-aged years that have been unexpected joys, maybe new hobbies or new things to explore, or things that you have found capture interest that you weren't necessarily interested in before or didn't have time for before?
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah. A lot of this is thanks to my kids. Trying to keep our audience in mind, but when I was growing up, it was it was kind of a different era, and things like Dungeons and Dragons, the paper and pencil game, was quite a bit frowned upon. um, uses magic, and you might be battling against some you know magically created foes, that might not be what we want to really think about, as good Christians and at this time. And I not that I really had anybody who said, "Hey, Barney, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons today?" Um, and then when I got to college, like a lot of my friends, they said, "Oh yeah, when we were growing up, we'd always play with our dads and, have friends over and play, and it was really lots of fun." And I always thought, boy, that would have been nice. That sounds like it was really a lot of fun. And so now that my kids are older, and then um, I can control the story, even within like the prepared adventure, I can kind of edit things as necessary. Then it's fun to be able to do this with them, to create this hobby together, because I was interested in it, but I didn't really have any notion of how it really worked, the inner workings. And so, I got a starter kit and read up about it and what to do, and asked my friends, um, and then yeah, we don't do it all the time, but we sometimes sit aside time and play that game and use our imagination and go on adventures, and yeah, that's fun. That and also board games. Um, I really enjoyed, board games here and there when I was little, but it's fun to see board games that come out now and then to play them again with my kids, and then see things through their eyes, and kind of feel the way that they make me feel part of the um the challenge or the journey, whatever we're doing in the board game too. So I'm glad to have more time to do that with my kids. I didn't expect. I didn't really know what they would be interested in, what kind of kids they would be. So it's fun to know that they like that kind of thing, as well as playing outside and whatnot, and that they like to share that with me. And
Yeah.
yeah, and I hope to be able to expand it more and more. I think about when growing up, when we used would our small group at church, when we would go camping and play all different kinds of card games. And hopefully I'll be able to, once they kind of get that concept a little bit better, hopefully I'll be able to introduce that to
Oh
them,
yeah.
and hopefully they'll want to share that with their friends too, to teach them different card games that are out there too, in addition to the fun Japanese ones too.
Oh yeah. Well, interestingly enough, as I follow up your thoughts, this is going to probably be obvious, and hopefully it's not too basic of an example to share, but podcasting with you has been something in my middle-aged life that I was a wonderful surprise and unexpected joy that I didn't know would be in my story
Yeah.
at some point.
Oh,
And
me
so I'm
too.
so
Oh yeah.
grateful. We were just talking this morning before recording. I believe this will be, once it's posted, our 93rd episode.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful for this outlet because, talking about success earlier and seeking after careers, I think having an outlet for one's creativity and a way to share with others and have a sense of connection and um, feel like you're contributing something to the
Hmm.
world in whatever vehicle that is so meaningful. And so I get an element of that for sure in ministry, when I get to share a sermon or be
Oh yeah.
involved with an event
Mm-hmm.
at church or in the community. But this is such a unique opportunity with podcasting and with you. And so this
Mm-hmm.
would be what I would list as the main one at the top of my list during my middle aged
Yeah.
years that I could
Oh
not
yeah.
have anticipated. So I'm very grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
So thank
Mm-hmm.
you for
Mm-hmm.
going on this journey with me. It's been really rich and meaningful, and I'm glad we're
Yeah.
able to do it. Um, so I wanted to ask a little bit about friendships. Have you had some friendships from your childhood or youth or young adult years that have extended into the current period of life that you're in? And have those friendships changed as you've gotten older? How would you talk about that? Or what do you uh, think of when you consider that?
Yeah, actually, I just wrote to one of my friends the other day that I knew him from preschool, and and then just as things happen after high school, we were busy doing, studying and searching for a career and whatnot, and then we kind of lost touch. But then he came to the wedding, completely the opposite. He came to the funeral of my mom, and that was real nice. And then I finally I had his email address, and I took the time to write him again. And since then, we have been able to write, here and there, not like it's so pressure filled to respond to one another right away, but a kind of a nice way to share about our lives and our kids, and our oldest kids are I think like just 5 days apart, actually. And so, yeah, that's neat. But it's also nice knowing that we're friends, but there's not so like, obviously we're understanding that there's a lot of distance, so it's not like we feel like we have to be in touch all the time, because there's something pressing happening, that just by the the fact that we're so far apart, that it's much more relaxed, and it's probably just the right amount. But and then from university, college years, I've stayed in touch with a number of friends as well, and it's neat to think that that's possible. And I think it's very much thanks to email,
Mm,
that it was starting off, when we were starting college, getting to be a bigger and bigger thing, and then probably, that was a developmental time for us, and so probably you
yes.
as well kind of latched on to email as a really important tool, and I think my friends did as well. So it's natural for us to communicate a bunch through email. And yeah, but thinking about friendships now, it's tricky to make friends now for a few reasons that well, I mean, for one, all of my coworkers are women actually, and then they don't live near where I do, And in Japan, it's, with spouses, it's very rare to have like couple friends because usually the woman's friends are from her work or from school, like the kids' school, and it's kind of her domain. And then the guy's friends are from his work and his colleagues, and then he spends time with them after work, having dinner together and then coming home. Something like that is a real standard way. And then so, but there's never really any case for getting together then um as a family, or as a couple. My wife might be very good friends with somebody, and then of course he's married, and she's married, and me as well, but there's no real reason to bring the two families together, and so that's quite rare. um and so that feels weird to me because I've it's always something that I think would be fun because I see my oldest brother, goes out with, couples as he and his wife have friends, and my other older brother has they have real good couple friends that they go out with too. But then here's everything is like separate. My wife says, "Oh, I'm going to go out, with these people today," and then I'll say, "Oh, I want to meet this person on, to get some ramen. Is that okay?" Something like that, and um but and then I always think, oh, wouldn't it be so neat to bring everyone together? But then it just doesn't seem, there's always like some kind of invisible force stopping that from ever happening. And um, so then, yeah, and then there aren't so many even though this is Narita and the airport's here, and there's plenty of pilots around, but there aren't so many Americans that I run into normally, or Canadians or whatnot. People who had a similar experience growing up and similar culture, that it would be just kind of natural to spend time with, and I don't run into them so much. So um, it's hard to think about making new friends, or having like real solid friends, that are here. I still feel like all of my real solid friendships are still back home,
Hmm.
back in the US. But um, how about things for you in this term? This is probably a.
Yeah, I have a lot of parallels to what you've said. I have one childhood friend who we've remained in contact over the years. Actually, Matt's brother, our guest from one
Mhm.
of our most recent episodes, his name's Joe, and we've been friends since elementary school. And he was talking with me and being an encourager when I lost my parents, and then recently he lost his father. Both he and Matt, and tried to be supportive to them, and that does change and deepen your friendship when you go through these big life milestones, and I would say probably better to say life losses and periods
Mhm.
of grief, to have somebody that you've known for years who shows up and is present and walks
Mhm.
with you through that, or vice versa, to be able to show up and try to
Oh yeah.
support your friend as much as possible. And so I'm grateful for that. There have been some friendships that I have lost or that have faded over
Mhm.
the years that I'm sorrowful about, that I would like to still have more connection, but it's just hard with
Mhm.
living in a different city and then being busy and the other person's busy. Like you said, it's harder to make friends as you age, I think, in a lot of ways, because you have a lot of commitments with it, particularly if you have children, keeping up with
Mhm.
their schedules. And in childhood, I think a lot of friendships happen based around common time that you spend together. Like if you're around somebody a lot in your neighborhood, or at school or at church,
Yeah.
just the
Mhm.
common space creates
Mhm.
opportunity for friendship. And then you think about the middle age years, how you have so little discretionary time in common spaces with other people. So it is tricky, but like, I still have a handful of friends that I would contact somewhat regularly, and you're one of them. And
Yes.
that's been a really neat thing, that
Mhm.
through the podcast it's also been another vehicle for us to keep building our friendship, because
Mhm.
after we record an episode, we stay on Zoom past that and just visit and
Mhm.
share and pray for one another.
Mhm.
And it's a tremendous way to
Mhm.
build our friendship and support each other, so I'm grateful for that too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
um, do you have any advice that you would give your younger self, something that you've learned over the years that, oh, it would be so good to impart that to young Barney, or if you could?
Yeah, I think that actually I would definitely have told myself to start reading the Bible more.
Mm,
Um,
it's good.
so I don't think that I fully read the Bible all the way through the first time until probably when I was in Thailand or after that, so 25 or so. And and I still remember coming to Japan where we were doing a Bible study and one because my first time in Japan I was working with a church and and then we were doing a Bible study and that one person I think we were doing Ephesians and they were I forget what they were talking about and they're like it just dawned on me as like, oh, hey, these are letters that Paul wrote. And then I asked the question, I was like, did Paul, wouldn't that be kind of neat? Did he ever like mention like certain specific people? Is he ever like, say hi to this person, like that? And and of course they're like, well, yeah. And then when I finally, read the Bible a few times, I was like, oh yeah, it really does have this like real humanity to his letters when he mentions this person or that person and when he says I'm writing this with my own hand and since then it's since I first made it through the Bible the first time and then especially since after I got a Kindle and then had the Kindle app on my phone then it's easy to take it with me wherever then I just once I um just three let's see just 3 days ago I finished another round of reading through the Bible and started right over again and yeah, there's just so much that you learn, so much that you miss the first or seventh or 10th time through, and then you pick it up the next time little by little. And it's great to see to, read it in different ways, either in chronologically or, maybe read the New Testament first or read a little bit of both or try to read it in a year or less than a year or kind of recently at nighttime, read just like one verse at a time or one or two verses at a time and think about what that means, what's really being said, or, um, look at it very, very closely. And then what's been so nice to do with you, look at the original language and the different words. And I think that are used here and there and elsewhere how is the same word used in the Bible and how does that affect its meaning? And then especially as my job as someone who teaches English, teaches language, then now when I really look at it, I think, why is it this word or why is it said this way? Because even just a little bit before, a little bit after, things are spoken very, very clearly. Why is it that just this one phrase is spoken a little bit ambiguously and why choose this word to use it that way and so that's a really interesting way to really think about and ponder about the Bible and I think that of all the books that I read and again being able to have a train that takes me to my work I have to focus on driving so I read a numbers of books all the time and I just fly through those but because the stories are interesting but I don't necessarily take time to sit down and think why did the author do this but I reflect on how the stories affect me and what I can learn from them too but not the same way and yeah I think that uh yeah the younger me when I was in high school some of my friends were from West Hill Baptist and they were always very outgoing speaking about their faith and whatnot and I was never opposed to that but I never joined in either and I think that having a real more solid back footing with the Bible maybe I would have felt more comfortable to at the very least to encourage them and support them
Hmm.
join in with some of the conversations that they were having I
Hmm.
think that would be Um,
It's good.
because it's so important and so meaningful that, sooner you start, the better.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think the younger version of me would have benefited from that same lesson that you
Hmm.
just imparted to your younger self. For sure.
Are you out there?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can relate to that.
Mhm.
I think maybe what I would tell my younger self is to not be um, defensive and take it personally when people challenge me with different ideas, or critique ideas that I put forward,
Mhm.
um, because it's not always uh, my fault that they don't see something the way that I do. Actually, oftentimes there's something to be learned either about an issue or about the other person or about myself in these hard conversations. And it's okay to disagree and have that
Mhm.
space more. And I think when I was younger, I didn't fully understand that. The other thing that I would say to my younger self, kind of related to that, is if people get upset at me, I would tell my younger self, if people get upset at you, um, don't just fall into a victim mindset right away of, oh, they don't like me. And I would also say, don't just fall into a people pleasing mindset, like how can I make them like
Mhm.
me, but try to ask the question like, what is behind this? Can I learn something from it? Is there something going? Have I transgressed a boundary not knowing it,
Mhm.
or maybe this is the other person's issue, and irrespective of who's around them, it will manifest. So maybe it has nothing to do with me at all. But kind of asking those types of questions instead of just jumping right to like either being a victim or people pleasing. I would tell my younger self, try to understand more what's behind it. For sure, I think would be helpful. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And that's, I think that even touches on what I mentioned earlier about maturity
hmm,
and you just think, how can I impart this very valuable lesson to my kids so that
yes,
hopefully that they can grow up thinking those things and um,
yes,
not kind of just falling back on what is easiest, what's quickest,
yes,
which is what I think we tend to do. But yeah, to be able to have those values instilled, now that we see this now when we're older, um, we realize how very important it would be for, our younger selves and, our kids to hopefully be able to have this outlook in their lives too.
yes. Oh, for sure, for
Mhm.
sure. Um, and then maybe the last question that I'm really drawn to asking is, um, what does living life to the fullest look like at this stage? And do you mind if I share a picture?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share a picture here. And this is taken just a few weeks ago,
Oh.
and it is with my family, Katie, Micah, Aubrey, and Hannah, and we're at Oak Hill Park. And
Mm.
this is a beautiful walking path in Worcester, Ohio. And it was a really nice day when this picture was taken. And it just so happened that day that we found this side trail that went
Oh.
alongside the paved one in the wooded area at the top
Oh.
of a hill overlooking a stream. And we had a really delightful time. And the lesson of that day that I took away is, about living life to the fullest is about being present in the now and in the moment where you are and inhabiting that and being trying as hard as you can to enjoy the people around you and to listen to them and also be ready to be surprised and be open to that, because we didn't know that path was there. And I think Hannah was a tad bit disappointed that day because we had talked about going to the OARDC Arboretum, the
Oh.
Seacrest Arboretum, and she was excited
Hmm.
about that idea, but we
Hmm.
ended up going here. She was a little disappointed. So we thought, oh, we'll go over by the trees. And she likes to look for salamanders and things under logs. And
Hmm.
so we're doing some of that. And that's when we found this path. And
Oh.
it was tremendous. And we went back again recently to that path and just love it. And so
Mm.
I guess my thought is to live life to the fullest for me in this stage of life is trying really hard to be present in the moment with those around me, with my family or with others, and to be open to the surprises and the gifts that come just by doing that, and also to try to have a posture of gratitude and realize that it's a privilege, it's a blessing to have uh, th- these people in my life and these moments. I feel
Mhm.
like God provides them, and it's a blessing. And so I want to live with gratitude and thanksgiving for them, to God and to them, and to others. So that's what I thought of. Do you have any thoughts on your end, for um, how to live life to the fullest at this stage in life?
Yeah, that's such the way you spoke about that was just so well spoken and well said. And yeah, taking being in the moment and being ready for change, or thinking that instead of going forward with, a set schedule, or, if this doesn't happen, it won't be great as it could be, but thinking that, what surprises might be along the way, or, how might things get upset and actually end up better. Um, yeah, that's the way to go for sure. One thing that I think that I really would like to think about, and I'll share a picture, is um, like having new experiences, I think. And then before we
Oh,
started, you asked me
yeah,
to find a recent family photo. I think this is the most recent one of all of us in the same photo at once.
that's a good one.
And yeah, this was at the place to go canoeing at Canal Fullerton, and it was last summer. And um, I'm there, and you and Hannah are there, and then Ayako and my two kids are there, and even my dad's there, and um, being able to go canoeing is not something that we can really do here in Japan, not easily at all or by any means, and sometimes even not really affordably. These kind of niche activities, sometimes they require a big investment to get to do them here, and I always think that's kind of too bad, because the different experiences you can have by doing something like this are so nice and
Oh,
so
yeah.
rewarding. And yeah, to take a step away from the routine and to have something special like this, like canoeing, or recently we were able to travel to Guam, and to see the way that life is there, and the different spend time in the ocean, things like that you don't get to have in your normal everyday life, but you can travel a bit, to get there, or in some people's cases. But um, having variety like this, having new experiences, for my kids, for my family, I think that's a real way to for me to think of, seeing this as something special for them, um, makes me real feel fulfilled, and like that's living life to the fullest, I think, for sure.
Absolutely. I agree. That was really a special experience. I'm grateful you shared that
Mhm.
story. I remember that really well. Uh,
Yeah, me too.
yeah. Um, what is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we close our episode?
No, it's been I thought we had a good lineup of questions today, and I still knew that who knew where the topic would go, where the episode would go today. And yeah, and that is one of the nice things about being able to do a podcast with you, is that like you said, it's a creative outlet, and I always feel this is also fulfilling. I always feel fulfilled. I don't
You
feel
too.
like I'm trying to satisfy this need to be creative, or to make or do something or express myself, because probably mostly because I have this to look forward to
Mm,
every week. And um,
I
yeah, it's
agree. Thank
exciting.
you.
Yeah, and I'm glad for that.
Thank you. I feel the same way, Barney. And so I'm so grateful for this opportunity. Thank you very much for joining me today for this, Barney. And I want to thank our audience for listening in or for watching the video. We hope that you also can relate to some of the things that we've talked about today, and maybe even some aspect of this conversation could be an encouragement or offer something positive in your own journey with aging and with gaining more understanding of who you are. And so from Barney and from me, we want to thank you again. And until next time, goodbye.